Hey everyone, good morning. I am Aaron Snyder, CEO of The Entire World. It's my game studio and humanitarian organization. And I know that might sound a little bit unorthodox to some, but I hope that this makes sense as I explain the talk and what Tech Connector really is as the first tooling offering. I know I'd previously offered some small Unreal, Maya to Unreal type tooling, but the tooling I'm adding here is a little bit more substantial, and I wanted to kind of go into a few of the motivations for the company in general, as well as the what I hope to accomplish with the tooling, and then I'll get into the fun stuff. I know everyone wants to hear the fun stuff first, but I think it's important to kind of know what I'm aiming to accomplish with the tooling in why it should be valuable or why it where I hope it will become valuable. Um, so yeah, I mean, as I said, my studio is humanitarian. So my even though I am not a nonprofit, my goal is not necessarily to create a company that follows the existing model that many companies have been establishing, where they create a healthy product, they get support, and then over time they slowly start extracting that value back from consumers. So old customers might feel like they got a good deal, but new customers don't feel like they're getting as much. And that's really important when you think about the gaming industry in regards to like new generation of gamers. You might be able to make a good PR campaign and convince adults that you are one thing, but kids see you as you are, and really anyone that's healed from trauma can get to that point of seeing things as they are. But really, children see brands as they are, not as they wish to appear to be. So it's very important for the future health of your brand for the next generation to interact with you that you are being very mindful of how you are interacting and treating your consumers and your employees. So, I mean, I know industry layoffs have been a pretty rampant thing in the industry lately, and that's something that I think people have been kind of hopeless about solving. They've just kind of accepted it as a fact of life at this point without putting in much effort. And I think over time that attitude kind of becomes debilitating to the next generation in itself if they actually listen to it. Um, there are definitely actions we can take, and that's the other talk that I'm hoping to give on GDC is more about the direct actions that we can all take together if we actually do want to stand together on this. But this is one avenue that we can take that I do think will actually impact the problem. So another problem I just mean this tooling, and I'll get to why in a moment. For new IPs, they're also too risky for a lot of investors. So, investors, in order to get funding, you really need either a very established prototype, an already very established team, um, a really solid roadmap. You need all of those things because most of the time you don't have the time to create a very healthy prototype and still keep your company alive. A lot of people kind of put themselves under the gun to get something done on other people's clock, and I think uh, that's something that I'm aiming to avoid as well. It's yes, money obviously would help, but you pay a cost later if you're not willing to pay the cost now with the uncertainty and the willing to work through those problems. So it's about also providing a better example that people can follow. Yes, it might be a little bit difficult to get started, but the more you can take your time and actually establish healthy foundations on your dime, the more well off you will be for the future of your entire life and the entire life of your company, as well as the entire life of all of your consumers after that. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, right now, companies are cutting costs. Consumers lose trust, like I said, and that comes back to bite you later on, especially if new competition comes into the environment. Which leads me to my next point in regards to what is currently an issue that we're trying to solve is the data centers issue um, and the ethics issue. The ethics of training in regards to what it's been trained on. No one's really been compensated. They haven't really properly credited people. The the data centers itself, I think, is largely driven because people are using the convenient frontier model. And I think that companies need to be working together more on creating more of a push to create local models to do consumer facing operations like DCC siding operations or engine side code or that type of stuff, because if you're able to do it on your local machine rather than relying on demand for a data center can be used for actual proper frontier model shit that really needs that level of computing. But if you can get things to work fluidly on your local machine, and then you can push out a tooling that allows other people to use that tooling, demand can drop substantially for that data center, and ultimately that impacts water supplies, the environmental conditions that are impacted negatively from it. So it's about providing a better example to that was the motivation. Um, and yeah, for the ethics side, it's I don't think it's necessarily that people are against the tooling; they're against it being trained unethically, and they're against the issues in the environment. They're against the job displacement. So basically, like the consumers and the middle class are paying the cost for a tooling that really is trained on the knowledge of the entire species, and the elite are trying to benefit solely from that and use it as a service that they own. And I think that's something that I'm definitely trying to get rid of as a mindset that anyone's even entertaining. So I'm going to be creating a model that is local, and I have it pretty far off or pretty far along. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily at frontier level yet, but I can do a good amount of project-related operations, and I can really do a lot of error handling and debugging of my existing code with my current tooling. But my tooling itself is really not an AI-centered focused tooling. So I have a number of different sub widgets and tools that are in there to offer people choices on what they wish to actually engage with. The tooling itself it was initially a bridge based off of some inspiration that I took from Respawn and That's No Moon when I was working on tooling there to push data back and forth between MotionBuilder, Maya, and Unreal. So the tooling that I already created for the sequences and for animation to be pushed from DCC to engine, and for the other side that I had like HI or human IK rig converter to a Maya rig, or human IK definition to a Maya rig, and then creating an Unreal control rig off of that definition too from Maya. So a lot of cross DCC talk was already happening with these tooling, and I was like, well, if I'm already doing that, why don't I just make some bridge kind of UI for that, where I can basically index functions that I could call for Blender or for Maya or for Unreal, and I could pass them back and forth from this steady location. And initially it was, all right, I need to make it so I can index the project. So then, yeah, I spent a good amount of time making the index really solid, and where there's a good amount of deterministic data so that you don't really have to rely on the LLM, because for anyone that's done any training on an LLM local, like if you aren't giving it proper context, it kind of just wanders and spends a bunch of time and kind of hallucinates. But the more that you can keep it gated and directed in smaller directives, the easier you can get something to actually be worthwhile. And again, like, you can use the AI to say, like, hey, create a rig in Maya. So I've set it up to work in that way, where you can call functions just by using plain speech, or you can use the smart menu for what tooling exists in Maya or Unreal or Blender. So it was basically a way where you could kind of start to create rudimentary pipelines, and then I was like, well, if I'm going to go that far, I'll create the node view, which the node view actually allows you to literally create pipelines in node view. I know my buddy Tim at ModTech Labs has some really great pipeline stuff for Not just gaming related pipelines. I mean, this isn't necessarily purely gaming, but 3D related pipelines. But he's got some stuff more going on there in regards to the pipeline side. But I wanted to kind of build on similar type of um, working in my workspace. So I got it so the tooling can basically build those pipelines, and then there's a tooling to edit the There's a Python and Node view that are basically mirrors of one another. So if you edit the Python, it converts the Node view. If you edit the Node view, it edits the Python, and then you can run those and store them. And then I was like, well, if I have these nodes stored in an easy to just recall repeatedly format, where these pipelines are these are the ones I need to call every week or something like that, like a anim bake at the end of the week or something. The user could also do that remotely. So then I started doing some stuff with a remote app, and that I got a little bit more work to do on that. The remote app has basically the pipeline side, and then it has a sketch application, or like an image editor application that can push to the PC app as well. But those are the two main features of the mobile app. It was pretty much just to have a convenient way to run pipelines and actually view the progress. So the bridge also acts as a viewer. You can view the actual viewports of each DCC app. And I was like, all right, so if I can actually view them in the actual resolution, I can call all of their functions. I can parse every scene from every DCC package or engine. Then I should be able to feasibly create the scene in one space, because really the goal of having a pipeline in general is to push stuff so that you can visualize it against other data that exists in another package. Like you might have stuff in Blender, Mobu, Maya, and I don't know, something else, Houdini. You might have stuff in 3 or 4 locations, maybe even more, and you want to visualize all of those in one space. Usually you would have to actually do the export, see them in engine, and that's where the actual compilation happens. But I was like, well, I mean, if I'm already doing this much, maybe that's another option people can explore if they really want to. So for larger cinematic files, I know that was the big hang up. It's gotten a little bit better in recent versions of Maya, but it's really slow to export a large cinematic file for 6,000 to 10,000 frames, especially if you have multiple characters and props and environmental rigs and anything else. It just becomes a really tedious process to do those exports. And if you're purely just trying to determine if placement is working with that export, it's visualization might become a cheaper option, where it might just be nicer to see them locally visualized in that scene. So then I was like, well, all right, in order to do that, then what? You need to either do the export, or you need to actually parse the data of what is there. So initially I was just loading what was there, and then I was basically checking geo for verts, and I was redrawing those verts to basically redraw the mesh locally. But then I was like, well, for animation purposes, I don't think it would really work to redraw an entire mesh's vertices every frame, especially for every mesh in the scene, versus redrawing the position of joints. So I was like, well, if I'm really going to have a back and forth, once I did have animated cubes in space, I had animated geo working from multiple applications in the same space, that I could actually manipulate and send that data back to DCC. But as far as really animating a mesh or a character, it wasn't really something that could be fully ready for production yet. So I decided to take it a little bit further, and build an actual animation skeleton system, so that you could actually legitimately load an animated FBX into our DCC viewer. Calling that Hephaestus right now, but that may change. But yeah, the actual joints then now need to be something where we basically, when we load a scene from another DCC to put into our viewer, we still check the what's in the outline or what's in the scene the same way. and we loaded into ours into our outliner that has like drop downs of like Blender assets, Maya assets, and then you can view them all in one space and play around with them there. And I got pretty far there, but then yeah, the joint side, I got to a point where now I can basically, when the Maya scene is loaded, if there is a rig, it regenerates the skin cluster, blend shapes, and connections in a way that can be transferable but is agnostic to other DCCs. So it's in our own language. I guess it's not agnostic overall. But it's in our own API. Um, our own API and our own UI. So like all of our tooling can be passed through that, and since we offer headless mode and a lot of convenient options, it may become more convenient to pass some of these functions through our tooling rather than others. And it's not about replacing others or taking away from the tooling that anyone else has done necessarily. It's about giving people options rather than forcing them to choose. And I think the model other people have taken, or that other companies have taken, is we want you to use ours. Here's all of these cool tricks and what that we want you to use. But really, I think I want you to use what pipeline works best for you. I'm going to give you options and a lot of tooling to account for a lot of problems that I have run into, and ultimately I'm allowing this to be something that people can contribute to on GitHub once I actually post it. But the goal is that people can actually be active contributors to features that actually impact their workflows. So this wasn't about just adding apps that matter to me. Maybe the user also wants to add some other app that I don't actually use, but they want to add and use in the same way. So I'm trying to add some bridge functionality for other people to actually add their own tooling, but right now I've got Blender, Max, Maya, MotionBuilder, Substance Painter, GIMP, Photoshop, Unreal. I'm starting on Unity, but I don't actually have the C++ bridge for that. Most of the other ones, at least I'm able to do a Python bridge with some HTTP ports. And this stuff all gets automated through my tooling for you. So you basically, like when you hit the bat file, it sets up the HTTP server file as a Python startup script in your Unreal. And then that allows you to have an active HTTP port that's available. In Maya, you set up a command port, which allows you to access, and I have it set up to do that stuff for you. So like every application, it does the setup side for you once you hit the bat file. There's like dependencies and stuff that get loaded, and then it checks which models you want to actually have installed if you want to use them. By default, the model isn't activated until you go into the chat, but you can do most of the other stuff without the model, you don't require using the actual LLM, but the LLM is there to be an assistant more than a driver. The LLM has a few modes, so you can do educational mode where it won't actually do the work. It will just break it down for you and kind of walk you through the steps you should take or probably should take. And the reasons why. So it essentially is like trying to be a tutor or a tutorial or service. If you do have it on, there's also features where you can seek knowledge online or new tooling. So mid-pipeline, if you're like, I want to create a motion matching system, and I want to have the system have climbing as an extra feature or something. But I don't have climbing animations. I need the tooling to work and also download animations for me. And it can connect to Mixamo or other 3D services to download animation files. So you can basically have it search for climbing files for you, or you can do the ingestion yourself and then just point it to the files on which ones you want to actually include. The goal is to basically give everyone options, because there's some people that just really aren't technically savvy, or even, I don't know, a lot of people are dealing with depression and stuff, and I want people to be able to actually create and find something enjoyable without having to struggle and use that as like a get good type thing. I mean, yes, I want people to understand at the end of the day. That's why like each step that it does for you, it gives you a clear breakdown and wants you to actually engage and acknowledge like this is or like test. Basically it wants you to interact. It's not about doing the work for you all the time. It's in a pinch it's supposed to do it for you, and then otherwise it's I want it to be more of a guide that helps connect your existing pipelines, what other tools exist online, what other assets are out there, and just make the whole process of development much easier, and make it something that can be potentially run from chat, for those that maybe aren't even able to fully even move their limbs. People that want to fully create, but they don't have the capability to do a lot of the stuff that we would typically be doing in development. It's about providing accessibility and options for everyone. But the goal is not for me to replace other tooling with this either. So even though again I'm giving choices, I'm allowing people to actually customize my actual UI. So there's the existing tech stack has a few different things. So for like the knowledge and indexing side, for the actual model logic, for the actual reasoning and what it goes through on understanding human speech. Every bit of the UI that has a major feature can be swapped out for another one. I mean, obviously, I haven't gotten to a few other features yet, and those are a little bit outside of that bounds because they are their own thing. But most of the other features, well, I guess they're not really fully their own thing, but they couldn't be swapped out inside of my UI. I'll get to those in a few. But yeah, I mean, so once I had that, I've got all of the pipeline stuff working fluidly now, so I can run that. The smart menu, when you do create a pipeline, so you can say, hey, I want to create a pipeline to export the current file in Maya to Blender, apply this thing to its material, and then like you can basically try to do like simple operations and pass back and forth from different UIs, and the prompting will understand, even though you're only saying these two commands, that you have to actually import in order to do the Blender command. So it would also add a intersection function to do the exporting from Maya with what you're actually interacting with in Maya. And I've been trying to make it work smart that way. There's a few more things I need to iron out there before I'm really fully ready to demo it. But that's kind of where I'm at on that part. And then, once I fully had the DCC, I was like, well, I mean, what else do I really want to have there? Because, I mean, really, if I have all of this, I have an official animatable object in my scene that could potentially live drive a skeleton in another scene, or the camera in another scene in another DCC application, or Unreal Live, or whatever else. But maybe someone doesn't want to use Unreal. Maybe someone doesn't want to use a major app. Maybe for a project, someone, Blender is one tooling, but you can't necessarily pass like what's in a Maya file through Blender if someone doesn't have access to Maya to do so. So like on your project, if someone has Maya, the other person only has Blender, and they're trying to do comparable tasks, there's a little bit of transition ability to pass them back and forth, but not in full capacity. And that's another thing that I was thinking, like, if maybe that's another thing we can eliminate here if I'm able to actually truly kind of recreate a hierarchy here that is working in a similar way and a similar coordinate space was another thing I had to kind of get right, because everyone has their own unique coordinate space. But yeah, I've been kind of just hitting the ground running with a bunch of this stuff. So then I got the DCC side. I was adding effects. I've been adding like muscles, a lot of different types of physics that you can add to the objects. So I'm trying to give rival to Blender Houdini for or in RealFlow for like effects side things, and seeing how far I can go with that, just to have the option there. But also having it where I can actually pass like the clouds back to other effects packages and have it actually be something that we can share and see how much things can work together so that we can actually build on progress rather than being destructive when you're going from one app to another. You can actually see like what these apps are missing when you use the exact same uh, features or properties on this cloud. Like what is the difference? What are the benefits of using one versus the other? And then you can really kind of use the pros and cons. But the tooling here, the goal is for it to be free for everyone, with the exception of enterprise models, and that's really only once you get above about a million, is what my current thought is. Once you get above a million, then you would pay percentage backs, or a percentage back, which would be something like 1 to 4% as a sliding scale. And I know 4% might seem like a lot for someone that's just seeing it as a tooling, but I think Unreal takes a lot more, and the goal is here that this is also going to be a game engine too. So that's another part that I added, or that I'm adding, to basically have it be something that could rival any larger engine as well. But it's also a space that allows you to work on the DCC package in the same cohesive space, as well as convert our files to your type of files, or convert your files to our type of files, to basically allow people to transition back and forth as much as they wish, or to test out any different workflow to really find what the best one is and what the most efficient one is for their project. And then, yes, for the AI side, yes, I did do training, but all of the training I've done is on publicly trained, like content. It's or publicly available content. It's not anything private. Everything that I did grab is privately credited, and of that 1 to 4% that is a sliding scale, that's going to be somewhat returned to the people that actually were credited in adding to the tooling, and to the things that make my tool great. Because obviously, like, I can make it really cool, but there's already existing tooling that does a lot of really cool things, and I'm not trying to say I invented those things or take credit for them, but I'm inventing the space for this, and that's the part I'm taking credit for. And also, I've done a bunch of AAA tooling in my days, so it's not like I'm purely vibe coding. I have used AI, yes, but I know what I'm doing. I'm directing it the entire way. I'm actually acting as a tech director here, in ways that I wasn't able to do in other roles. So I'm trying to use it as an example to actually work on my communication and my clarity in what I'm actually asking for, and it's so far paid results. But yeah, like, the goal is not for me to not know how to build this stuff or what was done under the hood. I've been the one driving it. I'm not the one saying, like, oh, just do something cool to match Unreal. I'm saying, no, this is a feature that we need, that people are typically used to when they're engaging with animation systems or any other type of system. There's standard things that people are used to when engaging with those things. So we need to maintain that type of parity between them. But besides that, it's about building something that gives something, gives a new way to develop and a way to learn and integrate things into your tooling much easier. Because I know the tech director typically, or the engineering department typically, was a gatekeeper in AAA in regards to what's allowed to be inside of your project. And arguably that kind of still should be the case, but since I'm the one building the tooling, I'm kind of establishing a little bit of that gatekeeping during the process of it ingesting tooling. So it puts it into an external tools folder, and then it becomes callable, but whether it actually becomes acceptable for usage does still require human eyes and usage. So like when you're downloading off GitHub, it's a crapshoot on what you're getting. You can trust something, but based on the stars or whatever, but ultimately first-hand experience and usage for what you need it to do is going to be what tells on whether that tool is actually working for you. So ultimately the goal is to make it easy to replace and modularize existing functions So like every function I'm trying to make API calls for and clear documentation about how you can quickly swap out our version of something for your version of something if you wish to use yours. Ultimately, if you use ours, you do have to give a percentage back if you make above 1 million. But I would be happy to walk people through on how to replace the entire pipeline with their own if they want to talk to me about that. Um, but that would probably be a consultation thing. But I'm happy to do that. I'm not trying to keep people dependent on me. I'm trying to give people a way to not be dependent on the existing expensive packages that they've currently been kind of forced to work through in order to compete. Initially, this may need some work, and I'm definitely hoping people engage with it and give it a lot of feedback. So that we can actually build on it. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of layers to what the tooling has and what we're hoping to accomplish with it. But my hope again is on the LLM side is if we can actually make this something that can really do most consumer side engineering tasks or art related development tasks. I'm not actually doing really any uh, generated images per se right here, but I am using machine learning for some skinning and joint placement in some cases. I'm using sometimes in the actual AI trees of characters if the person chooses to use it. But it's always optional. It's not something that the person is required to use. It's just sometimes they might want to use it, and sometimes they might not. And I think when I was building out this tooling, it was about creating an avenue to not only remove the demand from from those data centers, like I said, which should not do much good for the environment. It'll also kind of take away some of the stranglehold that the elite and the quarterly investors have had over the direction of the industry, and it'll allow people to kind of take actions on their own to create projects without needing funding or needing to participate in what is the status quo because uh, if the status quo is leading to lowered morale and pretty regular layoffs, it might be time to consider taking another avenue. I've been working on actual tangible things that people can act on, and this is one of them. And I think once people actually do contribute, like I said, it's free for everyone up until they make 1 million. So for educational products that aren't actually truly making anything, or for individuals just trying to create for their own personal joy, or for someone just making a small game they want to play with their daughter or child. I'll probably make some for my own daughter. For someone trying to make really anything, the goal is to allow more stories to see the light of day. Because I think the way that investors have been framing it is like, yeah, you really need to have something stood up in order to get the investment, and I think this allows people to truly pursue creating a prototype and truly building without needing to worry about the money to create it. Um, they may like Unreal tools better. There may be some tool they like in another package more, but if that package costs a couple $1,000s or a couple $100s per month, that may become out of affordability for some people. And this is about providing an option that allows people to actually truly always create as a human right. Not as something that I truly need to capitalize on. And I think the percentage for the amount that I'm trying to do, I don't know if I'm really going to stick with 1 to 4%. That's the initial amount I'm kind of toying around with as a residual amount for future profits. But again, that's if you make I forget what it was like 20 million or something. I was saying 4%, but if you make 1 million, that's at 1%, and then there's a sliding scale up to that. if you use our tooling, because it really is going to be handling a lot of stuff for you. It integrates with Confluence, so for all of your documentation, you can push that directly for here. For Jira or ClickUp, you can integrate it here and pass tasks directly from your prompt to there, or to access what's in a prompt and say, hey, I need to work on this task through the smart menu. So it's a way of integrating literally the entire pipeline as a it's called tech connector, but it's really, like I said, it's acting as a tech connector, but it's something that is customizable for your project. And then it just expanded to actually have DCC and game engine on top of it. So it had really healthy foundations for the actual understanding of project code and how to make repair edits and access what classes do what in the project. So there's really healthy mapping and dependency graph between functions. So when you call a function via the node editor, even you can right click and then bring a typical dependency tree into it. So if a function has arguments, and then there's like a body joint map, for example, but that body joint map gets defined by another function, the tooling will go through and see what dependencies actually need to come in with that one, bring it in, and connect it into your node graph for you. Or that's the vision there. So it's about making sure that kind of typical pipeline logic is able to be quickly understood and built more easily. But yeah, I mean, that's a lot of the stuff I've been toying around with. I mean, I would love for some people to test it out soon if folks become interested. I'm gonna post some actual videos of it in the coming days. But yeah, that's where I'm at. And I'll give you a little teaser of the logo. And yeah, this logo is pretty fun to make too. And then the UI itself. So I'm still kind of fleshing it out, but the goal was for the reasoning engine itself to be something that people could split off. So if it ends up being successful and working very well for the project code, it could be something that could be split off for not even code related reasoning. It could potentially be used for other areas because the goal is to have this actually be a truly adaptive agent that can work on its own also, but it's in a local model that can work on your local 8 gig VRAM PC. That's what I'm on here. And I've been moving between a 7 billion and a 14 billion parameter, but yeah, right now those are the things I've been toying with. Yeah,